Welcome back everyone to our second outreach workshop of the conference. I hope you've been enjoying the session so far. I am Catherine, I'm part of the organizing committee and I will chair this session. So today we have the pleasure of welcoming Sakina-Dorothee Ayata, an oceanographer, marine biologist and science communicator who brilliantly combines research and public engagement. She's an associate professor at Sorbonne University and a researcher at l'Océan, where she studies marine plankton. But beyond her scientific work, she's deeply committed to sharing ocean science with all audiences. Sakina-Dorothee holds a science mediation chair at the Institut Universitaire de France, and she leads creative outreach projects such as Médiation Plankton, which brings the microscopic ocean world to young children through games and hands-on activities. She also hosts the radio segment Plongée dans les océans on EU Radio, where she explores how the ocean breathes, moves, and changes. But she will tell you more and better about this. So in this session, we'll explore how researchers can find the right medium to make their science come alive for the public. In the next 30 to 40 minutes, Sakina will share insights and lessons learned from her journey in science communication. And I encourage you to post any question you may have in the live chat on YouTube. I'll make sure to relay them to Sakina during the Q&A session. So Sakina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Catherine, for your introduction. Thank you for joining online for this workshop on scientific communication. So my name is Sakina-Dorothee Ayata. I'm associate professor in marine ecology. I work at Sorbonne University in Paris, and my lab is called the l'Océan Lab. And I hold a chair in scientific mediation at the Institut Universitaire de France. So today I will briefly show you some example of activities I did to communicate science to diverse audience. But just before we start, I wanted you to present my topic very briefly. So I study marine plankton. Plankton are all those organisms that go along with the currents in the ocean. And I more specifically study those little guys. It's a copepod. You may know it because it's a bad guy in SpongeBob. And I use different types of approaches like imaging, modeling, multivariate statistic, or machine learning to study the functional traits of those little guys. And the scientific question I address are related to biodiversity in the ocean regarding taxonomic diversity, but also functional diversity. But today I will present you some examples of activities I do through my chair in scientific mediation at the Institut Universitaire de France. So I will start with example targeting general public, then examples targeting school pupils, and then I will also briefly mention activities targeting policymakers. And at the end, we'll be able to discuss together how outreach activities can shape a scientific career. So regarding my activities targeting the general public, I'd start with the first example, because recently we published an article, scientific article with international colleagues led by Maria Grigoratou on the immeasurable value of plankton to humanity. So it's an article published in Bioscience, which is a journal that aims to vulgarize our science. But the idea was to go forward and be able to explain this really interesting topic to people who are not working in science, like your neighbor, your cousin, or your friends. So what we did with 3 other colleagues and co-author of this article, we published an article in The Conversation, or The Conversation, which is an online media where scientists publish articles that are supervised by journalists. So our article online is called Plankton Can Investigate Crime, Affect the Climate, and Influence Science. The idea is really to explain to the general public why plankton is so interesting, important, and beautiful. So in that case, when you write a general public article, you really have to use plain language, avoid any complex vocabulary. It's a relatively short format, so you really have to go to the points. And it's also illustrated with nice images and videos. If you want to know more, there is a link here to our general public article. The first one is in English, the second one is in French. So as scientists, you can contact the journalist of the conversation to propose them some topic you would like to showcase in this media. The second example, as Catherine mentioned, relate to my radio podcast on a web radio called YouRadio. So far, I have more than 70 podcasts, and they are available on several podcast platforms. They are in French, but this year it's the 4th season. So how does it work? I have to pick a fancy hot topic related to ocean, and then I write a text of about 700 to 800 maximum words. And then I record the podcast with the radio technicians or a radio journalist. How did it work? Actually, they contacted me in the first place because they wanted to have a female voice talking about environment-related topics. So I started this 4 years ago, and since I've also been invited in radio shows, like in the French national radios, France Culture or France Inter, in particular to their 2 radio show related to science. And I have also recorded a video show with Futura Science, which is an online media. And in that case, how does it work? You are invited and then you prepare your interview or your show with the collaboration of the journalists. So usually the journalist will do their homework and come back to you with some questions, and then you will discuss those questions and also give them some information you want to mention during the radio show. So you prepare everything in advance. In that case, it's quite important to really think about what is your message, what you want to really mention during the show, to be sure not to forget it. And then you do the show, it's online, or sometimes it's recorded, but it's live. So I would say that for the radio shows, what is quite important is how you select your topic. And in my case, for my radio podcast, I have to say that it's not so easy to find a topic every 2 weeks. But hopefully, regarding ocean sciences, there are so many things happening in the news regarding marine protected areas, protection of marine biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, fisheries impact, etc. There are so many topics you can just pick when looking at the news. And sometimes also I talk about different species that people may know, like oyster, salmon, but for which they have no idea how actually those organisms live in the ocean. So that's how I picked my topic. And I also selected some topic related to science to explain how it works in a lab working on ocean sciences, how you become a scientist, what are the different higher education profiles you can follow if you want to become an oceanographer, for instance. A third activity is what we did last year on a video that is now available on YouTube. It's a 4-minute video explaining what is plankton to the general public. And how did it work? We work with the animation artist Liz Ehrman, and together we discussed before starting working on this video on what could be relevant and interesting also for her. Then we wrote a script with my colleagues working together with me on plankton. And then from this script, Liz proposed a storyboard where you have like a vignette for each part of the script. And so we discussed and we validated the storyboard with Liz and with my team of colleagues. And then Liz produced the video, and in a second time. We did the sound recording, and for the French version of the video, it's an actress who is speaking, but in the English version of the video, it's myself actually. So I had to record the sound in a sound studio. And our video was selected by the French Academy of Science to be showcased during what they called the Night of Scientific Mediation this year in June. And now if you want to see this video, I will just briefly show you the beginning. And then if you want to see the full video, you will be able to watch it later on YouTube.
Have you ever wondered what sardines, whales, or oysters eat? They all eat plankton. The plankton eats all the organisms that float in the water and drift with the currents. You can't find them in the oceans, but also in lakes, rivers, or groundwaters.
So in that case, with this exercise, what was really important was to select what was our main messages, because a 5-minute video actually is quite short. Yeah, you cannot convey a lot of messages. So you really have to make choices and pick the most interesting or relevant information you want to provide. And it was also really interesting to work together with my colleagues on this script. So actually, those colleagues involved were mostly young researchers, either PhD candidates or postdocs. And so we had a lot of exchanges before writing the script, just to like doing a brainstorming, proposing ideas and see what were the most relevant and excited ideas to be mentioned in the script. So it was mostly in the first place, a writing task where you have to pick the words, use plain language as well. And then the work was mainly collaboration with the animation artist, where she was proposing visuals and animations, and we had to comment and to propose improvements to end up with this video. And then regarding the sound recording, I also had to direct the actress for the French-speaking version of the video. So it was also quite exciting and something I wasn't really used to do. But it means that you actually have to think of how you want your message to be explained, what should be the intonation and the type of phrasing the actress has to use to present your script. If you want to see it fully, you can watch it on YouTube. I also do more classic activities targeting the general public. I've done several short conferences. I've participated to cine debate. I wrote some chapters in books, etc. And those activities, some of them are also available online, especially because they were organized by either my university, Sorbonne University, or by the CNRS, which is the French Research Institute, National Research Institute in France. So again, if you want to know more about plankton, you can also have a look at those conferences. Maybe something I can mention here as well is that usually when you participate to those activities, the public, the audience you have are people who are interested in science. So usually they come to watch or to see you or to listen to you because they are interested in our case, ocean science or plankton or marine animals. Then sometimes you can be surprised because they can have some very specific questions. So it can also be nice to have this interaction after the conferences with the audience to go further into some aspects. Those are type of activities I've been doing a lot lately. Were targeting school pupils. First, I met some young in high schools to talk about science and higher education. Especially I visited 3 high schools last year with the support of Déclic, which that is a French institution that aims to bring together high schools and researchers. So we spent half a day in each school with a team of 10 scientists, so with colleagues from my lab, including young researchers. And during this half day, I started with a brief introduction regarding science, plankton, research, and to explain to those young people how we produce knowledge, how we publish our results, how we can be sure that research articles actually convey true results. So really something quite broad on research and science. And then we had speed meetings with groups of 8 young. And those groups of 8 youngs, they discuss during 7 to 10 minutes with each of us, each of the 10 scientists that who were there. And actually, it was quite surprising at first to see how in the different high schools, the public could be actually quite different. So even if you know your audience, like you are targeting high school students, then actually depending on the high school you are visiting, keep in mind that you can have a diversity of profiles. So you really have to adapt your messages to your audience. For instance, there is one high school we visited in which most of the young were not really interested in higher education nor in science. So the discussion we had with them were quite broad. They were mostly interested in how much we earn as a salary. But in another high school, where the students were highly motivated for higher education, they had a lot of questions regarding universities, engineer school, things like this, prep schools. And they have very specific questions. So you really have to adapt your message to the public you have and to what they expect from you. I have also organized a lot of workshops for primary school children, especially during the latest science festival we have at the university. So in that case, we offer 1-hour workshop for a class. So the teachers enroll their class to attend our workshop. And during this 1-hour workshop, there is general introduction where I present to the pupils what plankton is and where they live, etc. And usually what I do is I ask questions to the children so they can participate. They're not just coming and listen to me. They actually answer my questions and I make them speak a lot. And then after this general introduction, the class is split in 3 groups and they all do one activity for about 10 minutes and they change and do another activity for another 10 minutes and then the third activity for another 10 minutes. So all the children will do the 3 different activities we have prepared for them. And then at the end, we gather them again all together for a general conclusion. Here is an example of the activity we proposed this year. It's a fresque. So this is big, like higher, bigger than a poster. It's like, how do you say in English? Sorry, like cherche et trouve, seek and found, maybe. I don't know. So you have to, to find where is that tiny plankton, where is that tiny diatoms, etc. So they have to. It's like detective play game, and there are some questions they have to answer, and they have to search in this large poster some clues to be able to answer the questions. And actually, this activity was co-created with the students in art and design. So in that case, it's also something I did not do by myself. I mean, I was with a team of colleagues. So here you have a bachelor student and a PhD candidate who are animating one of these activities, and this activity was created by a student in design. So my main advices here would be first to exchange with the teachers in advance. Usually what I do is I contact the teachers 1 or 2 weeks before the workshop. And I ask them if they are available for a quick chat on the phone, which allows me to present myself, present the activities we have prepared, and get the feedback from the teacher on their classes, on their children. And also I ask them if they have some advice on what we have prepared to adapt it to the class they have. Sometimes I have to make things a bit simpler, let's say, with less vocabulary. And sometimes I was able to do more complex activities with more scientific terms, depending on the public. And actually the teachers, they really know their class. So they are the one who could provide you some advice on this. And also I ask the teachers to watch with the children a small movie in advance before coming to our workshop. So it means that they have to prepare the children so that when they come, when they arrive, they know what to expect and they are really in the topic. And the last time, for instance, in a class, all the children had prepared one question related to plankton before coming to the workshop. So at the end of the workshop, we were able to answer them if their questions were not addressed during the workshop already. During the workshop, what is also important with children is to make them work. They have to practice, to play, to be in the game. So it's really important to prepare activities that are adapted to their age. And yeah, I think that's also crucial. And also, my last advice for this would be to follow up, meaning that after this 1-hour workshop, contact the teacher again. You can send them a questionnaire to have their feedbacks on the activity to be able to improve it for the next time. And also you can send additional material to the teacher they can use later on with the class, like coloring pages on plankton, for instance, or some little exercise it could do again with their teachers. This year, we also had this project with a collective of artists called Extraverti, with which we co-created 3 modules. It's like exhibition modules, and that were financed with an outreach project funded by Sorbonne University. So we co-created those 3 modules in which we had a small ball symbolizing plankton. And in one case, you start with here, you put your ball there, and then the ball will roll, and then either go one way or the other, or directly to the bottom of the ocean, from the surface to the bottom of the ocean, or would go through the trophic network. So with this activity, the children get information on what is a trophic network, who eat who in the plankton, etc. And each children can manipulate the ball and let it roll in the module. The second module is on the impact and threats that plankton is facing. So you have a small ball again, but that time it's set on this structure that is related to 2 strings. And so the children has to pull the strings to make the small plankton ball go up, and then avoid the holes you have. Like those holes are pollutions, acidification, overfishing, etc. And the latest module, it's more on the solutions that do exist to protect the environment. And then it's a maze where you start in the middle, where it's red when you have a lot of threats, and you have to escape to go outside, where the environment is in a better state. So in that case, it was quite interesting to co-create those modules with these artists who are really experts in setting up exhibitions. and to really practice with the children and to be able also to improve what we were saying, our explanations, so they can learn a lot and have fun in the meantime. So again, for those activities, we exchange in advance with the teacher so they could prepare the young, watch some video on plankton before coming. And then with those exhibition modules, they were really participating because they were manipulating the balls or working together here in the maze. You had to orientate this maze to make the ball roll and go in one direction or in another direction. So they had to work in teams, and I think when they practice, that's when they learn the most, actually. And after those workshops, we also followed up with the teacher to have their feedback on what could be improved in the future. And another activity I had with the school pupils, actually it's a large activity we have been starting last year and we are continuing this year. It's a collaboration with a nursery school in Paris that is based in a priority education networks. So it's children that can have some difficulties at home or from a social point of view. And this school has this collaboration with the Aquarium Tropical de Paris, so Paris Tropical Aquarium. It means that the children from this nursery school, so there are 3 levels in French nursery schools, and the children have between 3 and 6 years. So all the children from that school would visit the aquarium each year, and they will have also an artist coming to organize workshop related to ocean perception. And we have been creating those workshops on the theme of forms and colors of marine life. So what we did was to prepare material to organize 2 workshops per year for each level. So 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. The children were divided in small groups. So during one day, we saw all the children of the school, and they were divided in 8 groups. So we did 8 workshops somehow. And we had to create this specific material, and we had to adapt it to the public we have, because they are not, for instance, are not used of handling a pen. They are not used of coloring. So some of the children are not able to stay on their chair for more than 5 minutes. So we really have to adapt. And so the first time we visited the school, our activities were somehow really close to what they do at school, like coloring, counting 1, 2, 3, recognizing shapes, etc. And the second time, actually, we created a small board game where they had to roll dices with different colors on the different faces of the dices. And then depending on the colors, they were able to move those little figures here that are plankton, 3D plankton figurines. So it's like a race of the different plankton organisms, each represented by one color. And this was much more fun for them rather than having a pen in the hand. So in that case, you really have to be ready to get challenged because the public is really different from what you can be used to. You have to be creative to propose activities that are really related to their level, keeping in mind that for different schools, the level can vary. And so sometimes you also need to be less scholastic, I would say. And yes, really adapt to your public and exchange in advance with the teachers to really propose activities that are perfectly adapted to their children. And so this year we'll go again to the same school. So we'll see some of those children we'll see this year. We have seen them already last year. So it will be also interesting to have this this follow-up and to see how from 1 year to another the children progress and remember or not what we saw the year before. Oops. And then finally, another activity I do with school pupils is that I visit children at the hospital because I have this collaboration with a teacher who is working at an hospital in Brest in Brittany. And here it's when I visited children in the pediatric oncology service. So what I do is that I go twice a year to this hospital and I prepare activities in advance related to plankton. But this is also quite challenging because you really have to adapt to the day. Because you could expect to have 10 children in the class, but sometimes there is only 2 of them. Or you are supposed to see children of different ages, but the day you come, actually they are not in a good shape for the class that day. So you have to adapt and propose other activities. So it's really a way to also reach children that are not at the school anymore because they are hospitalized, but you can still, they could still do some nice activity and fun activities related to science. And I think that's also a great opportunity, even if it's quite challenging for us. And then before finishing, I just also wanted to mention some activities targeting policymakers, because when you do scientific mediation or médiation scientifique, we say in French, it also includes those communication you do specifically targeting policymakers. Because scientific expertise is needed to really support policy decision and the public debates. It's particularly true for ocean sciences, as you can imagine. So I also contributed to IBES regional assessments. So, you know, the IBES is the equivalent of the IPCC, but for the biodiversity. I also gave seminars or presentation to IUCN members. I also have science project with marine protected areas in France. And I also contribute to some groups of experts in charge of providing scientific expertise on the impact of human activities on marine diversity. And I think those activities targeting policymakers are also part of my work as a scientist, and in particular because of my chair in scientific mediation. Okay, so we are moving on to the end of my presentation. So what are the lessons I learned? So my main advice is in the title of my presentation. It's to use the right media to convey the right message to the right target audience. So you really have to think of this audience, who are they, to be able to adapt your message and then take advantage of the different media you can have. It can be online journal like The Conversation. It can be short videos you can publish on YouTube. It can be radio podcast. It can be actually anything you want, like a game, activities, workshop, really anything. But for us, what is really important is to select the media and find the right message you want to convey and really target your audience. So you need to know your audience to be able to properly understand their expectations. And then another lesson I learned is, what do you need to do good science communication? You need ideas, of course, that's essential, that's the first step, but that's not enough. You also need time. Hopefully, with my chair in scientific mediation at the Institut Universitaire de France, I have time, but it takes really, really a lot of time to prepare in advance the material, to exchange with the teachers, to do the activities. For instance, for one class, usually we are 3 to 6 scientists for 1 hour when we are doing our primary school workshops or nursery school workshops. When we are visiting high school, we are a team of 10 scientists mobilized for half a day. So it's really time consuming. Keep that in mind also. You also need funding or support, at least. For instance, when we have produced the board game with 3D plankton figurines. We had to print those figurines in 3D with 3D printers. We had to print also the board for the game. So we have to pay for this. The same for the exhibition. The modules, the 3 modules we created with a collective of artists this year were created through some funding we received by Sorbonne University. So it takes ideas, time, funding, but also collaboration. It's hard to do it all by your own. You need a team of collaborations. It can be other scientists, including young scientists, but also artists, designer, animators, actress, etc. And that's really important. You really need that great team of collaboration to really have successful activities. So I think we can now end this presentation and discuss further on how outreach activities can shape a scientific career, because for sure in my case it was quite important and it's still quite important. So I will be happy to answer your questions and have a discussion with you.
Thank you, Sakina, for this presentation. So we already have some questions in the chat, but I wanted to ask one of my own first, because you did so many things, and I mean, it's really impressive. So my question, really simple, would be, what is your favorite outreach format for a general audience and for kids?
It's a tough question because actually there are so many formats that are really exciting. Maybe this year I really enjoyed preparing this video with Liz Irman, the artist, and preparing the script with my team and having those exchanges with someone who is not from academia, with an artist, and really to confront our point of view and see the ideas she could have that are brilliant. Maybe some things we have to correct because it's not properly true from a scientific point of view. So those interactions and collaboration were really exciting. And I am so happy with the results because it's a great artist and I found the video really of excellent
really
quality. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. So I think it was, something really exciting we did this year. If I were to do another video, it would be something different, maybe targeting more specifically the young, like the primary school pupils, for instance, and in a different format with more specific messages. This one was really broad for the general public. We are actually using it when we are also visiting the schools, primary schools. So it was a first step towards the video, and I really enjoyed it. And regarding the kids, I really loved creating those games and those activities. So when there is these pictures where you see the board game we had with the nursery school pupils with the dice and the colors and the figurines. And also the large fresque we did, like the big poster on the floor with the children and this game. They really love, finding something that is in a big image. They are really skilled for this, picking the small stuff. And so it's quite exciting to see them really enjoying it and really into it during the activities. And I love doing those practical game, I would say, with the children.
Yeah, at some point I was also doing something similar where they had to find the bee queen on a picture, and it was their favorite activity, which was the most low-cost one. But I guess it also, I mean, following up on that, it also takes a lot of trials and errors, because sometimes you think something will really work and then it doesn't, and something you're not sure it will work will.
Exactly, and it really depends on the specific class you have that day, because it can really be different from one group to another. And that's also something I really learned that year doing a lot of outreach, targeting children, is that you have to be prepared to any situation.
Okay, so I will start reading the question from the audience. So Pastor Manta asked, how did you get your foot in the door with the radio? Did you have to audition to be on the radio, or did you get an invitation to be on the show?
So in that case, for the radio podcast I have for the web radio, Your Radio, how did it work? Actually, I registered to a French online repository where female scientists could give their contact to journalists. Because if you listen to the radio, you watch the TV, you read the news and the paper, actually, there is a lot of male scientists that are showcased, but not as much female scientists. So I registered to this repository so that journalists can have contact of female scientists. In my case, in marine sciences, ocean sciences, environment, and that's how they contacted me in the first place, because they were looking to female voices for their podcasts, for their radio podcast, and they were targeting scientists working with environmental sciences. And so ocean was one of it, and that's how it worked. And for the other radio shows I contributed to, I was invited because once they just found my name looking at the topic and looking for scientists in France working on that topic, and they contacted me directly. In another case, it was colleagues who gave them my contact. So it really depends. I guess then once it's maybe difficult to start, but once you did it once, then it's more easy maybe to find you and to be contacted.
Yeah, I also have the idea that the more you do, the more opportunity arise somehow. It's really like rewarding in that sense.
Yes, totally.
So they ask another question, but I think you already answered. Did you make the video all by yourself, or was it the French Academy's ID and they helped you use?
No, it was my ID, and I have the money to pay the artist to produce the video, but I was the one. So we were a team of colleagues writing the script, but then I was the one to finalize the script and decided which sentence we keep, which sentence we don't keep. And then we exchanged with the video artist when she provided a storyboard where you have, one picture per sentence, let's say. We interacted, and then she's the one who created the video and who animated it. And then I did the direction of actor for the French-speaking version. So it was created, I don't know, it was made by an artist, but it was a co-creation, and I was like the producer and realizator of the movie, let's say.
Okay, makes sense. So they also ask if you ever made like documentaries about those microorganisms yourself, and if so, what advice do you have for someone who also wants to be a nature cinematographer?
So I didn't. I know some colleagues who did, because I'm doing a lot of modeling work and numerical analysis, so I'm mostly behind my computer when I'm doing science. But I have some colleagues who are working at the bench and in the lab, who are manipulating marine animals. So in that case, they are the ones who are trying to make videos with those tiny animals. And so I'm not an expert on that part. But I think it's maybe easier for the young generation to just record a short video with your smartphone and then put it on YouTube and be able to do some science communication much more easily than a few decades ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I would say that you also learn from your mistakes, so you have to practice and try and again, and you would improve all the way along.
So then they ask a question about the activity with kids. So when they speak a lot, do they end up leading to friendly discussion among themselves about the topic?
No, because actually they are quite into it. They, you know, when they prepare in advance to visiting the university, they have prepared their visits, they have their questions in mind. So they really want to ask their question. And you are the scientist, they are happy to see you. That sometimes the first time they see a scientist. So I would say I would say that there is no problem of them talking with each other. Actually, they are quite focused. But depending on the age, you know, they have those different behaviors. Like when the children that are about 6 or 7 year old, they would want to ask a lot of questions, and sometimes it's difficult for them to, you know, keep their questions in their heads. They just want to speak it out loud, and you have to, you know, moderate their enthusiasm. At one point, you have to say, okay, if you have any other question, let me just finish my presentation, and I'll answer your questions. So that's, you know, how you have to handle the flux of of energy they have.
Especially the young kids, I think they want to ask questions all the time, and you need to keep their interest going. So it's a difficult task.
And another example I have in mind is this year when we did this the modules, the exhibition modules with the ball featuring plankton and in the maze. So you have this large table, and there are different kids all around the table. It's a round table, and they will move the table to make the ball roll in one direction or in another direction. And in that case, usually, so it was the kids were about 9 to 10 year old, and they would argue with each other, like, no, don't do this, no, it's your fault if you are failing, etc. So in that case, you have to make them relax and explain, no, it's fine, we can fail and we can try again, it's no problem. And
yesterday we had another workshop on outreach, but with insects, and one of the panelists was also saying that if you had some competition, they will be more into the game, but I guess it's like you need to get the right balance.
Yes, exactly, because for instance, with very young children, like in the nursery school, they can get violent, like they want to fetch the 3D figurine of plankton, and the other children want to catch the same, and then they would just like slap each other. So because they are younger and they don't know how to handle their emotion, they are not so very they cannot really, not all of them actually speak properly to explain themselves. So yes, you have to deal with this, and that's why it's really important to know who your audience is, because depending on who they are, you really have to adapt. But again, you will learn by doing. You have to try and improve.
And talking about the little modules you made, I mean, someone asked a fun question. Have you ever thought about making the one in the middle like a pinball machine for an arcade?
I have some colleagues actually who did some video games. They were approached by video game producers, and they have this. So it's a video game. You can play. I can't find the name. It's on something on Plankton, and you can download the app with your smartphone, and you have to recognize plankton images. And so they did this. So it's a real video game, and when you recognize the pictures, then you earn points, and then you go from one level to another, and it's more and more difficult, etc. So there are some video games that do exist on Plankton.
That's fun. It can go from pedagogic to something just fun related. So Katarina says, thank you for a very inspiring talk. I am wondering, how did you get all these activities? Do you reach out to schools, hospitals, etc. by yourself?
So how did it start? Again, it's something you build step by step. For example, for the children in hospital, actually, their teacher is a friend of mine. So that's how we had this idea to work together, because she's also interested in science. So she do a lot of scientific activities with the children, but she was really interested in having a proper scientist visiting the children. So that's how it started. With the nursery school, which is part of a priority education network in Paris. In that case, how did it work? I think I contacted, I remember, I did a mini conference on a Saturday organized by CNRS in a museum in Paris. And at the end of my talk, someone came and she was a scientific communicator in this aquarium. And she told me about what they were doing and that it could be amazing if I could contribute to their work with the children. And that's how I contacted them, and they were really interested in having those scientific coming into the school to talk about science and plankton. So yeah, I would say that once you start doing things, then it creates new opportunities. So you have to start. And then it's a mix of opportunities, like serendipities, and also what you want to do when you contact people and you ask them if they're interested in collaborating with you, and you propose them propose some activities. So you have to be active, and then it will come to you more easily.
Yeah, I think yesterday, we already touched a little bit on that in the other workshop. At the end, we gave some tips, and the main tips were like to start small, to see how you can manage the time investment, and then you can build up, and also start local. So contact someone you know, or action in your university, things like that.
Yeah, because usually if it's not in your lab, in your university or institute, for sure they are doing science communication. So you can just contribute to what they are already organizing, and then you can propose new ideas, and that's how you can start quite easily.
Yeah, also, as you already said, I mean, if you can collaborate with other people or do like a teamwork, it's easier to manage your involvement and not be overwhelmed by
Yes, true,
the
because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you said that at the end, so I think it's really tricky to balance like outreach and research at the same time.
Yes.
So do you have some advice on how to do that?
I don't know, because fortunately for me, I have this chair, so I have more time. So I'm associate professor, so I'm supposed to spend half of my time teaching and half of my time doing research. And with this chair, I have much less teaching duty. So I have more time to do outreach, and that's also why I've been able to develop all those different activities. Because yes, it takes time. And for instance, for my radio podcast, the first year I started, I was highly motivated, and I had one podcast per week. It was exhausting because preparing a 3-minute podcast was like 4 hours work. So it was too much. So now I have one podcast every 2 weeks. So yeah, sometimes
It's
you have
more
also
manageable.
Yes, exactly, to adapt your expectations also, and because it takes a lot of time, for sure.
So we don't have any more questions from the audience, but I have some of my own. So, okay, could you share an example of an outreach activity that worked like unexpectedly well or didn't go as planned, and what you learned from it?
Yes, for instance, the first time we visited the nursery school, I had prepared this game where there were some diatoms, so that's tiny algae of different shapes, like circle, rectangle, square, etc. And the children were supposed to put them in the right place, like put all the circles together, the rectangle, the triangle together, etc. And there was this tiny piece of papers, and they were supposed to glue it on their board, on their paper board. And the teachers told me, "No, it's fine. They are used to use the glue, and there is no problem. We have everything you need. So don't come with your glue. We have our own glue, and it will be fine because the children are used to use it." And, I had in mind that I would be using a stick, a glue stick, because that's why my children actually are using at school. And in that school, they were using liquid glue with a small, it's not like, I don't know, a small stick. And they were
like
using those liquid, no, it was not exactly a brush, actually. It was more like a plain stick, I don't know.
Okay.
And they had to use this very liquid to put on their small piece of paper to glue it on their sheet. And it was a nightmare.
It was messy.
So actually, with the youngest, the 3-year-old, they were really, really, concentrated, and it was fine because they were doing it with a lot of application. But for the 4-year-old, we had glue everywhere, and it was a nightmare. So
I can
yes,
imagine.
glue sticks are much better than liquid glue, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's a tip to remember.
So even when the teachers say, yes, it's fine, they know how to use the glue, we have everything you need, be prepared, and it can not work as planned.
So coming back to career, I wanted to ask you, what are the main challenges you faced as a scientist doing public engagement, and how you have overcome them? For example, if you had someone around you that told you like, why are you losing time with this? You should focus on research or something like that.
Yeah, it's tricky. Actually, in my case, I did the science outreach when I was a PhD student. And then after that, I didn't for a few years because I had no opportunity to do it. And I didn't really thought about it because I was quite busy with other activities. And I know that when I get my position in my new lab, some of the PhD students were really active in outreach, but some of their PhD advisor would be more reluctant. And sometimes it was difficult for them to be able to justify to their supervisor that they wanted to participate to science festivals, things like this, or to visit schools. So in my case, I had never that kind of trouble. And today, so I would say maybe it started again maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I did with my podcast, and then I was invited in radio show and was invited to do mini conferences, to cine debate, and that's how it started again. And this is why I applied for this chair in scientific mediation because I had for the past year I had a lot of new experiences on outreach and scientific mediation. I was able to propose a program that was really targeting school, because that's something I haven't been doing for a few years. So my project in mediation was really focusing the schools and continuing the other activity I was doing with the radio podcast, things like this. And I was lucky enough to get this chair. So now I have much more time to do it, and I am able to properly do the activities I want to do. And also I have some funding, so I can, as I say, pay the printing of the different material, etc. And what I do also is that I invite my PhD students, master students, postdocs to contribute to my activities, also because I cannot do it on my own. It's much better working in a team. So yeah.
And it's a good learning experience for them.
And also it's great for them, for their CVs. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, in the audience, keep it in mind. If you are doing outreach, you might sacrifice a bit of your research time, but then you can apply to grants, funding, prize. So in the end, it can be really rewarding for the career.
Yes, and for instance, if you want to apply for a postdoc position like the Marie Curie fellowships in Europe, there is some criteria related to impact of your project and to science communication. So it's also something that can be well evaluated later on when you apply for a position or a project or anything.
So we are reaching the end. I think I will ask just one last question as like open conversation. In your experience, how can outreach activity promote accessibility and inclusivity in science? Because you already touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think first, as a female researcher, I mentioned it already, it's important that female researchers are also present on the video, on videos, on the TV, on radio, etc. And the same for any other minorities. I think that's quite important. That's the first things. And also when you prepare your activities, think about people with disabilities, people from other countries, low-income countries, people for low-income neighborhoods. That's also important because you also need to target those public, and you have to adapt your message and your media to those specific publics. So that's something, yes, that is important to keep in mind, because when you do science communication, you can also contribute to having less discrimination, and that's also a positive activity you can have as a scientist.
And I think it can be as easy as thinking of color for colorblind people, or adding subtitle on videos, things like that.
Exactly.
So I think I will close the workshop now. Thank you everyone for your question. If you have more questions, you can write to Sakina in the Discord, or directly at her email, and she will answer you. A big thank you to you, Sakina-Dorothee Ayata. I mean, your presentation was really inspiring. So before we wrap up, I'd like to give you an opportunity to say a final thought or message if you want.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to do science communication, go for it, because it's very rewarding. And it's also a way to go outside your lab, talk about your science, what you do in your daily life as a scientist, to other people. And sometimes it's also rewarding to see that they can be curious about what you are doing, and you can really trigger some questions they would never have in mind otherwise. So it's also a way to have a direct feedback on what you're actually doing. And because sometimes when you are just in your lab doing research, writing papers,
Yeah.
that's something that can be lacking. So go meet the people outside the lab and talk about what you are doing. Start with your grandmother, your neighbor, your friends, and then you can go to the general public or to children.